Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Litzar, happy to be your host and joined by Vern Schellinger to answer your job search questions. So actually, before we get started here, Elizabeth was giving a shout out to Vivian, who had last week suggested that she contact a school teaching organization, and Elizabeth did that. And now she has an interview coming up. So we were just really excited about the power of networking. That's what we do around here, help each other. So who has a job search question we can answer? Ty, you're on mute.
I don't have a question, sorry.
Oh, okay. Moving your mouth. All right. Or a topic we can dive into?
Yes, I was wondering if there is a website that you can recommend. I've been looking at placement agencies, so I've been reaching out to quite a few, but I'm looking for real good headhunters, where I can actually put my profile in. It's there is so much variety in that in that field that I'm trying to pick the ones that are the right fit for me.
So this is actually a good time for us to have another chat about headhunters. Is that good, Vivian? I'm gonna bounce off of that and that's okay. I just want to have give my little speech about that. Is that good? So I'm going to address your question, but I'm going to answer it sort of for anybody who's interested in what's this whole recruiter world like. Okay. So I'm going to take it from 100,000 feet, and then Vern would love to have you chime in as well. Because there's a lot of confusion around this topic. So before addressing headhunters in general, I'm just going to talk about what do we mean by recruiter, because we get that kind of question too. So in the world of recruiting, you've got two kinds of recruiters. You've got a corporate recruiter, and then you have a headhunter. So corporate recruiters are full-time paid. Oh, hold on a second. We have an HMMer, I think, who's trying to get in here. Oh, that's so odd. Okay, I'm sorry. So we have corporate recruiters who are full-time paid staff. They're paid by the company, right? So the company has to be large enough to warrant having a full-time recruiter. So they usually have to have at least 200 employees, at least. Vern, you can correct me if I'm off on that, but it's about that, where they have enough openings to warrant having a full-time person. Often those individuals are actually, you'd be surprised, fairly early career. Not always, but a lot of them are. And so they're kind of homegrown. And then people who like that profession stay in that profession, and they can become a director of recruiting, whatever. But it's not surprising. Don't be surprised if you ever have a corporate recruiter who's early career. And in fact, myself, I started right out of school as a recruiter, as a headhunter. So I was early career right at one point too. Like a lot of people do it that way. And so we're not necessarily, there's no degree in recruiting and all that. And the reason I say that is because a lot of job seekers assume that recruiters have skills that they don't necessarily have. Okay. So recruiters are sort of winging it a lot of times because there's no formal training necessarily. I mean, there's some courses here and there, but it's a lot of on-the-job training. And so recruiters just sort of figure it out. And then eventually they get into their rhythm and their pattern. They have their way of doing things. But if you've ever come across an early career person that you're like, I was expecting something different, that's often because it's just the nature of the profession. You don't get a degree in recruiting, okay? And every company has different ways of doing things. On top of which,
let me jump in here because you're talking about this specific thing. So in the HR world, it's often, as Shira said, it's a place where, like, an administrative assistant who is scheduling the interviews for the director of recruiting. So the administrative assistant starts to understand the recruiting process. And then the administrative assistant sits in on an interview. And sometimes it's very, very often where people in human resources start their careers in recruiting, because it's kind of an easy transition for them to work their way up through the recruiting ranks, as opposed to benefits or compensation, which are much more complex, much more technical. So as Shira said, that's why you would get a younger person typically, or potentially you could get a younger person in a recruiting situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People transfer it into all kinds of angles. In fact, there are actually some people who are not early career, people who are actually career changers, particularly in headhunting. That can happen, where people just sort of say, "Hey, I want to be a recruiter," and they just sort of do it. And a lot of companies and search firms will be like, "Sure, we'll try you out," right? Because they're often looking for a personality type who's good with people, right? Who can be engaging and kind of close the deal. And so, it's just one of those professions there's no straight path to it necessarily. Okay. So that's on the corporate recruiter side, but I do want to mention one more thing. Corporate recruiters are unbelievably busy because to even be a corporate recruiter, there has to be enough job openings in the company to warrant that job, to warrant their being full-time hire. And so that person could have 30 open requisitions on their desk. No joke. No joke. So they're not only juggling 50,000 candidates, but they've got all these hiring managers who are breathing down their necks, asking for unicorn candidates. And unfortunately, I mean, this is almost too, and Vern, you can tell me, correct me if I'm wrong here, but whenever I've talked to corporate recruiters, they feel a bit like the redheaded stepchild in the company. Generally speaking, they feel kind of that they don't get a lot of respect. The hiring manager's like, yeah, the recruiter, yeah, just go get me my person, without necessarily seeing that recruiter as a true business partner. Often they're sort of seen as, well, just do my thing. And so unfortunately, a lot of recruiters have a challenge influencing the hiring managers and sharing with those people, look, you can't get this unicorn. I know you're looking for this perfect person. They just kind of don't exist. A lot of hiring managers they just don't have that kind of trusted relationship. Not all the time. Sometimes it works very well, but a lot of times it's just this relationship. Vern, have you seen that on your side of things?
Yeah, and it works both ways. It works both ways, because while hiring managers would beat our doors down to, get my candidates, and then would get the candidates and give them the best resumes and say, get back to us so we can start scheduling interviews, pick out the 3 or 4. And we'd wait 2 weeks before they would get back to us. And, then I'd go to them. I said, I thought that, this was urgent, and your team is struggling now because they're picking up the load from the empty position. But this is just the way the world is, because those managers are busy doing a million other things too. So it's, yeah.
Recruiting is not the top of the list.
The ideal situation in a corporate setting is, the recruiter sit down with the manager, go over the job description, help them, tweak the job description for, what needs to be done right now, post it, get the resumes, have the hiring manager get back to us in a fairly short period of time, and move that process along from beginning to end when you first post the position to, 30, 60, 90 days at the latest, you've got a new hire. But sometimes it can drag on for months.
That's right.
So,
hey, by the way, before we keep going, everybody say hello to Brent. Brent's new with us. Known Brent for a little while now. Great guy, and
Hello.
joining us for some time. And so Brent, we're just having actually a conversation about recruiters. We're just like talking about just the recruiting world. I was just talking about corporate recruiters, and now actually we're gonna shift into headhunters, because Vivian asked a question about, well, how do I find a good headhunter, and what is that about? So I figured I'd just start at the high level. So let me tell you about the headhunting world. And by the way, it's okay to call us headhunters, okay? Because it's not bounty hunters. It's not what it means. The old expression was hunting heads of companies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that comes from. But you can call us headhunters. You can call us third-party firms. Typically, though, you wouldn't call us a staffing firm. And let me explain the difference between a staffing firm and a recruiting firm, all right? So a staffing firm refers to temporary staffing.
Mm-hmm.
A recruiting firm is permanent, the direct hire. Okay. Now, yes, there are temporary staffing firms that also do direct hire, or temp to hire, as they say. Occasionally, you'll have a recruiting firm who does a little bit of temp work or contract work. But generally, when you hear the word staffing, it means temporary. And a search firm is considered the direct hire. So that's my world. I don't do the temporary work. So I'll tell you about the direct hire, which is what Vivian was asking about. So now we'll go here. So I'm going to break it down into different kind of buckets. So I want to talk about the specializations of firms. I'm going to talk about the business model of the firms. And then also, what is this idea of like work with a good recruiter? Like, what does that like mean? Okay. So when it comes to the specialty areas, search firms, no, there's hardly a search firm that specializes in everything and anything. It just almost doesn't exist. Typically, it's going to be one or two of the following, like could be an and/or, either an industry vertical or a career vertical, or both. Here's what I mean. So if it's an industry vertical, so let's take myself, right? So in my headhunting recruiting world, I specialize in the association industry. Now, I will do occasionally something else. Like last year, excuse me, I did a couple searches for a SaaS tech company. I felt okay doing it because the kind of roles that I was placing, one was sales and one was marketing. I do that in my association world, so I felt comfortable and was fine. But I don't market myself to tech firms, okay? But I'll do something, occasionally. But I specialize in the associations sector, and In knows that, for example. In is in that sector too. She and I have a lot of common connections because we're both ensconced in that world, okay? So you might have a firm that specializes in commercial real estate, placement, or higher education, or government contracting. I mean, pick an industry, right? There are plenty of firms that have that specialty, or the firm has multiple practice areas. And a practice area could be, like there's one or two headhunters in that firm who specialize in commercial real estate, and a couple who specialize in nonprofits or whatever. But then there's the career vertical. And there's some recruiters who specialize in just that. So they specialize in placing accounting and finance people, okay? Or they specialize in human resources or marketing. For example, there's a firm that I'm very friendly with. It's called Torchlight Hire. Her name is Heidi Parsons. She's the president. All they do exclusively are marketing searches, top to bottom, from CMOs to Lola, everybody, marketing. Okay. Now I do a little marketing too, but she is special. So like I'm like a McDonald's in that regard. Yeah, I'll do marketing and I'll do government relations, and she's a Five Guys. That's all she does. So she's going to have a whole bunch of marketers in her world. And the reason why that's important to know is because if you are a job seeker and you're a marketer and you sign up with Torchlight Hire, okay, there's a good chance that there might be more than one opportunity for you there, because they're constantly doing marketing searches. That's all they do. So much so that they might look at you and say, wow, you've got this really cool skill set. You know what? We have a client. Let's see if maybe we can do something creative. And right now, generally speaking, recruiters do not, I've got to be really clear about this. They don't work for the candidate. They work for the employer, right? And so there is a model out there, and I know there's one firm that does this where they kind of call like marketing the candidate or shopping the candidate around. That basically means is that if they have, and it's going to feel like they're working for you, it's not quite the model. You're like this, you have a unique skill set, let's say, and the headhunter says, yeah, we generally have employers who need this kind of skill set. So they might proactively shop you around to see if somebody will bite, but that means that they're saying they're getting a fee from the client, right? They can't guarantee anything. They're just sort of saying to the client, hey, I've got a really good person. Is this somebody that you're interested in? Okay. So, but the employer's paying the fee, so they have no control as to whether or not the employer is going to say yes. Generally speaking, we do it the other way around. We, the recruiter, we go and get a search from an employer, and then we go talent scout. We go find the talent, right? So then it comes into the business model. So there are basically two kinds of business models in the search world: contingent and retained. Contingent and retained. So the contingent model, and this can matter to you on the job seeking side. That's why I'm telling you this. And you're not going to know, but you might feel the effect of it. So on the contingent side, that's where the employer does not pay the search firm until the search firm makes the placement. There's no skin in the game for the employer. What ends up happening, so basically it's a non-exclusive search. Generally, what that generally means is that the employer wants to work usually with more than one search firm, and whoever wins first gets the fee, which means that the search firm is working for free until they make the placement. Okay, that means that the search firm, in order to actually have a business, they have to work with multiple clients. And how that affects you guys is it might feel a little slipshod.
Mhm.
on your side of things, where you're like, they reach out to you and they toss this line in the like, hey, are you interested? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then all of a sudden crickets, or they don't have a lot of information for you, or it takes a long time for them to get back to you. And it just feels kind of like, wait, where am I? That's probably because it's contingent, probably because they're juggling tons of searches. And because of that, they often don't have the time to spend with the employer to really deeply understand the search. They usually often can't control the employer. They don't have that kind of deep relationship. And it's like, because there's a lot of people, a lot of search firms that are working on this thing. And there are firms that have that model. There are other firms, and I happen to be of the second sort, which is retained. Okay. So retained means, number one, it's exclusive. So when I do a retained search, there's no other search firm. So I'm exclusive with them. But number two, the employer is paying along the way. So they pay an upfront retainer to engage my services. They've got skin in the game, and so do I. And I'm committing that I'm going to spend time working on this search. We have a partnership. Okay. I get to really understand the client, and we have a relationship, and they're with me, and I can shepherd the process, and it's more intimate. And they're paying at different milestones along the way. And I say that because that's going to probably feel different to you too, right? Because you're going to probably feel from the recruiter that you're getting more, right? Usually more information, the timeline, right? If things are kind of going along at a clip, and you just feel that intimacy. It's like working with a real estate agent, right? But that real estate agent is very similar, where they're working with the seller, right? You're the buyer, that kind of thing, and you have somebody working with you and negotiating and that kind of thing. That's typically what it's going to feel like on the retained side of things. But then to address Vivian's question about, well, what about, how can I find a good recruiter? So I'm going to address that in two different ways. So first of all, it's finding, first of all, you have to find the recruiter who works in your space, right? So there are firms that are, like in your case, Vivian, nonprofit agencies. So Professionals for Nonprofits is one. Staffing Advisors does nonprofit search. Nonprofit HR Solutions does search. I do nonprofits. Like there are several of us where that's our lane. I mean, that's what we do, right? We work within the nonprofit. So first you have to narrow down a firm that actually works in your area. And by the way, there is not a recruiting firm for every profession in every industry. I'll give you an example. So I could be wrong, but I would not imagine that there is a search firm to place social workers. Why? Social workers don't earn very much, which means that the employers who pay them, right, typically are not going to want to spend a big recruiting fee. And these fees are not cheap, okay? Are not going to want to spend a fee on top of somebody's salary to go pay for a social worker. I'm guessing. That's just totally my guess. Vern, I don't know, maybe you know differently, but I would not imagine, right? Because it is very expensive for an employer to hire a search firm. It's just very expensive. So it has to be worth it to them. So if they're already paying a very low salary, chances are they're not going to be wanting to pay, right, another fee on top of that to hire that person. And on top of which, there's a whole other issue, and that is, is that an industry or a sector or a profession where there's lots and lots of candidates? So for example, take government relations, lobbying. There are firms that do lobbying, do place lobbyists and such. But you know what? The lobbying world is extremely well networked. So if you're an employer and you're trying to look for a lobbyist, chances are you know a lot of people already. You probably don't need a firm to go hire, right? So you got to think about it that way too. So you can just Google, you can just say, like, search firm or placement firm or, employment agency, and then put in your profession or put in your industry and see what happens. It could be, but you have to find one, right? And if there isn't one for you, then that may not be a route. And then there's the whole issue of what is a good one, all right? So there are firms that have big names like Russell Reynolds and Korn Ferry, right? And Heidrick and Struggles. And those are executive search firms. They only do executive level search. But even then, you can't go with the reputation of the firm, because at the end of the day, it's about the recruiter. Okay.
Yeah.
It's about who that person is. It's not about the name on the door. It's who is that person. And even so, yes, different ones of us have different styles, and some are more relational or more transactional and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, Vivian, regardless of how the recruiter does or does not engage with you, they're still just a liaison. So it's not even really about the recruiter. It's about the opportunity. They're just a conduit between you and the opportunity. So whether you like working with them or you don't like working with them, it's not irrelevant, but it's not really that important because they're just right there, the gatekeeper between you and the job. At the end of the day, it's about the job. And so what I would recommend is as you go forth and look for the firms, just see them as a conduit, right? Regardless of what kind of relationship you're going to have with a recruiter, although I hope you have a good one. Just say, look, is this a firm that tends to have opportunities that are in my profession or in my sector or both? If there's an opening, you apply and you get vetted like you would by any recruiter. Hopefully they treat you really well. But regardless, right, it's just about getting through them to get to the opportunity, right? Always be focused on the opportunity rather than the recruiter themselves. Is that helpful?
No.
Yeah,
So
sorry, go
go ahead,
ahead.
Elizabeth. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just going to say that I think that's the opportunity I have today with Carney Sando. Before even meeting me, they had presented 5 potential jobs and really only one was suitable. But it's too far away. So if I keep declining what they're presenting, is that
Okay.
going?
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Okay.
Not a problem. Nope.
Okay.
As
Good
long
to
as you
know.
do it, as long as you decline it in a professional way, which of course you would, right? They know
Yes.
this isn't, and that's fine. That's fine. They know that there are lots of reasons why people don't,
No.
but as long as you treat them well, again, I know you would, but that is honestly, that is the only reason why a recruiter would not choose to work with a candidate anymore. If the candidate is not professional in their approach to the recruiter, because remember, the recruiter's representing you to the employer. They want a good
Right.
placement.
Yes.
Okay. So I had a situation very recently where I was talking with a candidate and there was just something off about her, right? She struck me as having, well, I'll just say an attitude. I don't know how else to describe it, but she was just sort of curt and just kind of, I don't know. And wasn't even just curt. She just struck me as somebody who was going to be a little difficult to work with. Okay. And I actually let and she was qualified and I let the employer know. And I'm like, I mean, you can see her, but I'm just a little hesitant and whatever. Well, one thing led to another. They actually ended up hiring her and unfortunately it didn't work out. Now it's nothing about me. I'm not saying putting myself in the back. I just mean that we kind of can sense these things. Okay. Now it was the employer's choice to move forward with her. And turns out that, yeah, there were issues. But my point is that we are looking for, we're vetting who you are and how you engage with us. And we're going to share that one way or the other with the employer to see, okay, is just like an HR person would. We're just an extension of human resources to give advice to the employer. Is this person going to be a good fit, right, for the culture? But as far as your needs, Elizabeth, I don't want the commute or a different salary or whatever normal kinds of requirements that a job seeker might have. Absolutely, that's totally normal, and we respect that, and they should continue to work with you until it's the right fit. Vern, did you want to share something?
Yeah, let me just emphasize the difference between again a contingent recruiter, a retained recruiter, by way of some specific examples. My daughter was working with a contingent recruiter 5 or 6 years ago about making a move to a new company, and like anyone else, she had worked with her current firm for like 10 or 15 years. So she was really comfortable there. She was doing well there, but she really wanted to get out of the firm. But, at the last minute, she kind of she's trying to get in cold feet. And again, this is oh my God, am I going to be able to be successful here? I'm successful where I am. This is all new. It's all different. And the contingent recruiter was as polite and courteous as possible because Jennifer was moving through the process, and the other company really liked her, and she was one of the 2 or 3 finalists, I guess. And then it came right down to making the offer, and Jennifer was hesitating, and all of a sudden the contingent recruiter completely changed. What do you mean you don't want the job? We've gone this far because the contingent recruiter doesn't get paid unless she gets hired, right? So the whole thing, it was almost like she was putting pressure on Jen to accept the position. Now, the happy ending, she did accept the position, and she's done really well there, and it was a great move for her. But that's an example where the contingent recruiter is feeling the pressure, I'm not going to get paid.
That's right.
Compare that to a retained search
Pain.
firm.
Right. We don't feel that.
You don't feel that at all, because the retained search firm, I'll give you an example. If you're a $200,000 executive, the search firm might have a 40% fee. They're getting $40,000 and they're getting like $20,000 of that right up front. And we've got the exclusive rights to do this. And so you're not going to feel that pressure. And in fact, with a retained search firm, their reputation is now on the line. So as an HR executive, when I would hire a retained search firm, I expected them to, give me really 3 to 5 really quality
Qualified
candidates.
candidates.
Yeah, but they would talk to me. Let's understand the culture, understand the
Right.
position.
That's
They'd
right.
go back to the candidate and they'd explain that to them. And as a candidate, the executive recruiter is actually telling you information about the company, and they're telling you more about the job, and they're actually helping prepare you for
That's
the
right.
interview
That's
with
right.
them. Because if you go into the interview and you fall on your face, I as the HR executive is going to go back to the retained firm and say, I'm paying you guys a lot and gals a lot of money here, and you sent me this candidate. No, by the time you get to those final interviews, the retained
That's
search firm
quality.
better be sending really high quality people that were right on target for the job, because their reputation is on the line.
My best clients are the ones that say to me, wow, Shira, all the candidates are so good, we don't even know who to pick. That's a
Yeah.
good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
That's our goal, right? Is
Yeah.
to make sure everybody is not only well vetted as far as capabilities, but hopefully there are more recruiters who have this, my philosophy, which is I want the candidate to want the job, right? So I'm one of those that right up front, is this right for you? Is this right for you? Does the culture fit? Is this the right job? Is this the right, is this right? And are you qualified? And so by the time the person goes through the process, they're usually falling all over themselves. My hardest conversation is letting people down, because typically they're just so over the moon about the role. And I've been gone through so many paces. It's like, oh, then we can only hire one person, right? But that is absolutely a difference, is that retained search firms go deeper with the employer and go deeper with the candidate.
Thank you, Shira. I just wanted to alert the others on the group who are also looking. I got approached on LinkedIn cold by someone, and they wanted to try and help place me, and I was asking 7% of my potential salary. I'm like, thank you very much, but no thank you.
That's a rare model. Okay. Occasionally you'll find a firm that tries to do that. And notice at 7%, it's not 30%, which is kind of a typical fee. Even so, unless a person can really afford that, that's why we don't have that business model. Because how could a job seeker afford to pay, a percentage of salary? It's the employer that has the pockets. Every once in a while, you might find somebody approach you like that, but obviously that's your decision.
What isn't that? I thought that was the headhunter model, not a percentage, but like a cut, like a fee up front. And I'm sorry,
That's
Ty,
okay.
I'm jumping in front of you, but sorry, go ahead.
The headhunter model is that the employer pays the fee.
No.
The candidate, it's free for the candidate. Okay, that makes sense. So the employer, what happens is and the reason why, again, it's called headhunting, right? So, or at least it used to be hunting heads of companies. So the employer comes to the recruiter and says, go find me a something. So it used to be the headhunting was, find me a CEO or something, or in normal case, find me a project manager, find me a director of marketing, find me a whomever. And the employer pays the recruiter a fee. You could call it a broker's fee if you want, to go find Brent and place him in a job. So in a retained model, the employer is paying the recruiter incrementally, and it's an exclusive search. In a contingent, the employer is only paying the recruiter once the placement is made. But in none of those cases does the candidate pay. Candidate's free for the candidate. What Vivian's talking about is a very rare thing, where the recruiter comes to the candidate and says, hey, pay me a percentage of your salary to go place you. That's usually cost prohibitive for most everybody. So that's why it's so rare. That makes sense, Brent?
for those of us who are older on this group, I just want to let you know that I'm going to try out the Gateway program at the Jewish Council for the Aging, whatever they have that program. It starts, and I'll report back on our next meeting how it goes.
So Vivian, you'll be seeing me there. I'm the LinkedIn trainer for that.
Yes.
So there that Monday, there's like it's like a 5-day
Yes.
thing. So that second Monday, you'll see me there. Highly
Yes.
recommend it. It's only $75 for the whole
Yeah.
class. But it's 5 full days, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, I think. And highly recommend it.
This is my binder for it.
Yeah, if you want to put the link in the chat, Vivian, for anybody who's interested, it's just a really good group, and it's run by the teacher is Dr. Elise Barnes. She's fabulous,
Yeah.
and she really take you through some very good practical tips. And they bring in speakers like me, to people who are experts in different things. And Elise herself is a LinkedIn expert. You should know. She actually has a business where she trains people on LinkedIn. So.
Okay.
Thank
you. I'm actually going to their open house right now, so that's why I'm leaving, and I will miss our group, our prayer group. But
well, God bless you, Vivian.
Great to see you.
Take care.
Bye
You
bye.
too.
Bye bye.
Ty, sorry we've been keeping you on hold here.
No, that's okay. With the contingent recruiters, is it true? Of course, there could be multiple contingent recruiters submitting names versus
That's right.
the exclusive. So at least with the exclusive, it's channeled into a funnel. Is that right?
It's true. Absolutely. In fact, they can get a little bit confusing, right? Where if there's multiple recruiters, you could hypothetically be contacted by multiple recruiters, in which case it gets confusing on the back end as to who gets the fee. We actually have laws around that, and it's some, I don't mean to get into TMI with you guys, but there's actually something called the procuring source of the hire. What does that mean? That means that whichever recruiter presented the candidate first, and the employer says, yes, I agree, that's the person who gets the fee. Now it's TMI for you, but just understand that's why there's a scramble with contingencies, because they're all working on the same thing. Let's say 5 firms, and you get contacted by 2 or 3 of them. You're like, well, I already heard from. And so somebody's scrambling to get your resume in there first. It's a bit of a, yeah. Anyway, challenging.
I have a question.
Yeah, Brent.
In your position, are there good tools for helping discover culture fit? Because it's extremely important. And if there's nothing more than a conversation can express it from both sides, but it seems like this is a problem with the solution in I don't know, software or something.
It's actually one of the biggest challenges. I'm glad you brought it up because we don't often get that question. I'll address it, and then Vern, definitely want you to chime in here. So look, just sharing this with somebody yesterday. In my mind, first of all, there are 3 kinds of cultures, if I can say it that way. There's the overarching culture of the company. Some companies have a really strong known culture. Amazon is a very definitive culture. If anybody knows Amazon, they are a challenge everything culture. You have to have alligator skin on top of crocodile skin to work there. It's just the way it is. Ritz-Carlton, their tagline is, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. They are the opposite of an Amazon culture, okay? So there are companies that are like, and there are certain sectors, that like law firms, right, often have a certain kind of culture. That's sort of a corporate culture, and it's sort of known, but not everybody has that. You could have a no-name company that you would just never know what the organizational culture is, okay? Then there's the departmental culture, department by department, and that could have to do with how that, either the type of department it is or the supervisor. But then there's specifically the supervisor themselves. That's the third thing. And that person keeps changing usually, especially these days. And so, and then there's the coworkers, which of course you're not going to know. And those people keep changing too. We have a job market now where not only there's a lot of rifts and layoffs and whatever, there's just a lot of turnover. Most people are not loyal to jobs, right? So they'll come in, they like it, they don't like it, 6 months, a year, 18 months, in, out, in, out. So we have constantly changing departmental cultures and supervisory relationships because there tends to be a lot of turnover. So on some level, Brent, you can only figure that out but so much anyway, because once you get in there, things are likely to change, okay? New coworker, new supervisor, we're just in a fluid kind of environment. 30 years ago was different. People stayed for 10, 15, 20 years. it was sort of the standard thing, but now there's a lot of turnover, especially in the corporate world. Nonprofits, people tend to be a little bit more stable, but there's a lot of turnover. But as far as addressing your question, you want to be asking questions that try to get to the heart of this. So you could start with an overarching question, or hey, just generically speaking, how would you describe the corporate culture at a ABC company? Just broad, okay? See what they say. Listen for the language that they're using. Sometimes they're gonna speak in code. So let's say it's not Amazon exactly, because Amazon's very overt about their culture, but let's just say it's that kind of challenge everything culture. They might say things like, well, we're really hardworking around here. Well, we expect a lot of our people. Well, we're kind of rigorous. Do you see the language I'm using? It's not negative, but it's code for strap in. Okay. As opposed to somebody who says, wow, we're such a family around here. And we just really care for our people. And we really encourage, empower. And that's code for something else. And I'm not suggesting, Brent, that you would want one or the other. I'm not trying to, right. But you got to listen for the kind of language that they're using. It's always going to be diplomatic, usually, but it's code. Okay. Same thing with when you ask about a department culture or what's the supervisory style. Listen for the language. Watch the body language of the recruiter when they're talking to you. Are they like leaning forward and getting all animated, or are they kind of mincing their words? And saying,
or do they feel a
question.
palpable pain in their left arm and smell burnt toast?
It's like,
these are clues. These are clues.
It's just like, and they are just mincing their words. They're going quiet. They're like, great question, Brent. Well, the way I put it, they are hedging their bets here. And they don't want to say anything negative, but but they're kind of indicating to you, this is going to be a challenge. So that's generally how I would frame it. Vern?
Yeah. So in answer to your question, Brent, is there a tool to find out the culture? There is none. We all wish there was. Right. There's no exact, follow these 10 steps or that type of. The best way to do it is everything that Shira said. You talk to as many people as you can about that company, people who currently work there, people who currently used to work there.
Yeah.
And then even then everybody's giving you their own opinion of what the culture was like for them. So you just have to take all that information in and summarize it as best you can and make your decision on that. To Shira's point, when you're talking to people at the company or in the interviewing process, when they say, tell me a little bit about the culture here, and so they tell you a little bit about the culture, don't be afraid to push. Okay, you said customer service is really the cornerstone of the culture here. Can you give me an example of when people have demonstrated superior cultural customer service to your clients? Can you tell me a time when you didn't, give good customer service to your clients? And again, see what they say and, judge how honest and sincere you think they are. I mean, if people are willing to say, yeah, we really screwed up on this one, and here's what we've done to make sure that doesn't happen again. Those are the types of things that start to give you a little bit of confidence that you kind of know what you're stepping into. But at the end of the day, you never really know until you actually get the offer letter and you get in there and you start to experience it. I had the worst experience of my career was with a company where there was an executive recruiter involved. They were looking for, it was a new senior VP of HR, brand new position. And the supervisor who was in New York, and this position was in Maryland, she really wanted the HR team in Maryland to weigh in. And they kept going, thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. Until I got there and they all went thumbs up. And I said, okay, I've got a new job. It's great. I'm really excited. And within the first 6 months, I'm saying, oh my God, this is like a cutthroat, backstabbing culture. And I was so out of, I had come from a pretty stable company with a really pretty good culture. And this was my first experience in a new company. And so I lasted about a year there and I was out. So culture really can have a dramatic impact on how successful you're going to be. And you just need to do everything you can to get as much confidence as you can that, I'm going to be this is going to be a good fit for me.
And you also have to define what you mean by culture. It means a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
There's everything from sort of like how people treat each other, right, so to speak, to how work is done, the workflow, the processes. I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm working with a nonprofit, and I'm not the recruiter. I'm doing strategic planning with them, and so I'm getting to know them in a different way because I'm talking to all their people and just kind of getting really under the hood. And this is an organization that's very mission driven. I mean, heartfelt. They are all about serving a particular population. Lovely people, smart, kind, great, right? So when you work there, you feel the love. It's just that kind of. However, their CEO, lovely guy, he's entrepreneurial and he's one of those like, he'll sort of like grab projects, right? Whenever anybody says, hey, can you guys do blah, 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 he'll take it on. What happens is that it makes everybody's job very confusing because their job is constantly changing. Well, what do I do now? What do I do now? I found out yesterday he recently hired, they're in a growth mode. He recently hired somebody, great person, and literally did not hire her with a job description. Literally. She was leaving another job. She'd already engaged with this organization, so she knew them. And she's like, okay. And she says, well, what's the job? He goes, well, we like to hire good people, and then we sort of figure out what they're going to do after they get here. It's like, she's just like, okay. She's sort of going with the flow. And so, like, I'm going to be in a position, actually, my husband and I are working on this together to sort of help them, like, wait, like action planning and like workflow. And so that's another cultural angle. Nothing to do with how lovely the people are. But there's this sense of right hand, left hand processes, structure, roles, right? So, Brent, there's a lot of different angles to the concept of culture. So you have to figure out for you, what do you mean by that? What exactly are you looking for or not looking for? And then maybe ask a pointed question, because oftentimes people, job seekers, especially those of us, right, we've all been working for a while, we've been in different cultures. Oftentimes we know what doesn't work because we know it doesn't work. So if you want to put your finger on that and say, can you guys tell me about how you handle or what this part of your company based upon what didn't work for you in the past, if you're trying to avoid that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
No. And just one other thing on culture. Korn Ferry just did a worldwide study of all of the largest corporations around the world, and they did an in-depth study on culture, and most of the CEOs were saying, vast majority of them, culture really does play a large role in terms of our overall success.
Totally.
So it's clearly, culture is clearly seen as, if you're in a company with a great culture and they're a great company and they're doing great things, that's kind of the ideal place to be. But again, as we've discussed here, it's just, while the CEOs are saying they're attributing their culture to the 30 to 50% of the success of the company is based on the culture they've created. So it's a really, really important topic.
What did you say the firm was that did that study?
Korn Ferry, which is one of the retained search firms. And of course, the retained search firm.
Korn.
Yeah, in fact, I can actually, give me a second. I think I can pull it out.
FERRY.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, another firm that does extensive work on this is Gallup. Like the Gallup, the polling agency. They are known for working on employee engagement. So they do these studies all the time. Like they just came out with one on employee recognition, and they gear it toward HR people. So if you ever go to Gallup or even Korn Ferry or any of these places, it's written for the HR professional. So you can kind of peek under the.
And of course, Korn Ferry does these types of things because they send it out to all of these people. To Shira's point, and some senior VP of HR goes, "Oh wow, culture! We really need help in culture," and so Korn Ferry now gets a contract. But I don't know if you can see this very well. You probably can't. I don't know.
Oh, you'd have,
With your
you'd have to take off
filter,
your, you'd have to take off your virtual background. Oh, there it is. Yeah, we can
There
see
it
it.
is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just raise it
So
up.
this is, I subscribe to Corn Ferry because they do a lot of stuff on recruiting and,
But can you lift it up? Culture is just a buzzword.
yeah, culture, just a buzzword. So,
Yeah, the larger search firms, Korn Ferry, Russell Reynolds, Heidrick and Struggles, they will often put out thought leadership pieces, white papers on different things.
I do
You know,
accounting and taxes. Maybe my problem this whole time is I haven't done enough white papers. Sorry, someone else was talking.
it struck me last week, Vivian mentioned it was towards the end and I know she's off now, but it struck me because one of her comments was that she only managed to put in 3 applications and, relative to, I don't know how many she does a week, but she felt kind of, a little down. And I thought, here I am, and my goal is at least 2. So if I do 2, I feel really good. Like I found 2, and of course she's in a totally different, industry and all of that. But I just felt like, and I thought, maybe I need to up the game, like up the count or, but so I was a little conflicted because I know it's again totally different sector, different, positions and job, but I thought, well, I don't know. I was just
It's
a little
different. Yeah, there's different philosophies on this. I tend to be of the mindset of quality over quantity. That's me.
Mhm.
Apply for the things that you're really good for. Now, I just talked recently to another coach type person, and she's of the complete opposite mindset. And she advises people to do just like apply. And she's found good results with that too. In fact, she said, and I meant to go follow up with her to get what it is. There's this, I forget what she called it, but something like a Google aggregator. And I don't remember the name of it. I have to get it from her, but she basically gives this tool to her people. And she says, use this tool. And what Google will do is they aggregate like all the jobs from all the job boards in this one spot. So instead of you going to Indeed and you going to LinkedIn and you going to Career Builder, this is one aggregator. It's like Amazon kind of a thing, right? You just pull everything for you. And then she's just like, go apply. And then she's had people have good results. Now, then again, could be the level of person that she's talking to. I don't know. I know for someone like yourself, I mean, you're looking for a senior level role, highly specialized, right? Nuanced. You can't just, to me, you can't just, right? And you and I have worked together, like I'm like, no, not this, but this, and
That's right. That's right.
Right. You get to all the way to the end and they vet you and they're like, but you don't have this, or are you sure you really want that part of the job? And
Yeah.
it's knowing that a friend is going to save both of you time. That's my philosophy, is really about everybody's different. I mean,
Yeah.
So Vern, you have a thought on that?
no, I agree with you. I mean, to me, it's I'm more in Shira's camp, the clarity that you have around, the exact position that you want to work in, and you have the skills and expertise, that clarity, that focus, I think is really what's important in the job search, because you're then in a better position to communicate that to people. And then the more specific you are in the communications, the greater likelihood they can either say, no, I can't help you because I don't know anything about that, or they're going to say, yes, I can help you. I know somebody who's in that field, and I'm going to connect you to this person or this recruiter or whoever.
Right.
So,
Yep.
Other questions? You can end a little bit early if you want. All right. Well, Brent, it's good to see you. You're welcome anytime. And the meeting I shared with you is the same one. We use this every week. And so I'm going to go ahead and formally end this part of the call. But for those of you who want to stay on with me for a prayer call, that's what we do next. Okay.
Yeah.
Have a blessed day, everyone.
Take care, everybody.